Communication Error.
Welcome to episode 32 of the Communication Error podcast. This is the community patch notes episode of Do We Need the Game Awards? But before we get into it, and before we introduce the guests, I have something happen this weekend that really annoyed me, and I think our guest will it'll resonate with them. So yesterday around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I get a message.
Oh no! Oh, come on, man! You don't have to do this.
It says, "Bro, what's with your Eagles?"
Oh.
And I'm like, what is this guy sending me this for? He likes the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean they were doing all right. They were fine, and then they weren't. But no, so for the listeners, you can't see. I am wearing a green shirt because Broncos are pretty much they're out. So I got to root for someone, right? It's got to be the Eagles.
It was a sad game last night, but you got to just look at the overall standings. That's what's most important.
Still best record in the league. They're not eliminated. I guess the Broncos aren't technically eliminated, but
not technically.
They're eliminated in my mind.
There's a chance.
But I'm reading this message and I'm already mad because the Eagles are getting blown out, and then this Denver Broncos fan has the audacity to send me a message like that.
I was surprised that you read it because I didn't think that you would be paying attention to your phone at all while watching the game.
I was, because I was depressed.
You got it. I mean, he had to avert his eyes. You can't be watching that.
Yeah.
But now to get more into the show, to introduce our guest, you know her as forestminish, Rebecca. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being on. How are you?
Hi, thanks so much for inviting me. This is such a fun time of year for gaming, and so I'm glad that you asked me to be on the show so that we can talk about it.
Well, so you have had a lot of tweets recently that I think that have caught up some attention, but just first and foremost, since we are all Nintendo fans, I think we have to know the tweet that you put out recently.
I know which one you're talking about.
Super Mario Sunshine is better than Galaxy. And before you answer, I want you to know I love Sunshine. I think that it is such a wacky game. The music is iconic. It's unlike any other Mario game. But it is a broken game. It's very difficult. The levels without FLUDD is a mess. Were you trolling? Do you actually believe that?
It was definitely a bait post. I love getting people riled up on Twitter. But it's really interesting to see because there were a really large number of people who were like, yes, preach it. You're so right. And I don't know who was scarier, the people who were like yelling at me because they thought I was wrong, or the people that were like, oh my God, you're so right.
Yeah, because I know before we got the 3D collection, I was all about Sunshine, and I just remember playing that as a kid and just really enjoying it. And then when we got to replay it, it's like, oh no, this game is not as good as I thought it was. Like, I still love it for what it is, but yeah.
The 3D collection was actually the first time that I played both of those games like in their entirety.
Nice.
So that was my first introduction to both of those, and I think definitely one has aged better than the other. And it's not Sunshine.
Well, we have our own debate about a Mario game that we always ask the guest, which I think I forgot 2 weeks in a row, or 2 times in a row. Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World?
I have a bias for World because that was the only Mario game that I grew up with. For many, many years, that was the only Mario game that I ever played. And it was one of my first games because the Super Nintendo was my first console. So I didn't play Mario Bros. 3 until I was an adult.
And then what did you think of it when you played it?
It was fine. It was good. It was Mario.
God.
I don't know. It's no secret that I'm not like a huge Mario fan. For as big of a Nintendo fan that I am, Mario has never been like one of my favorites, but you just gotta love Super Mario World. The sprites, Yoshi, all the sounds, like it's just so good.
The Super Nintendo was my first console as well, but Super Mario Bros. 3 is superior in every way.
But
it is a classic, I'll give you that.
If we look at the results right now, Johnny, Super Mario
I don't
World.
think anybody chose.
Nobody has chosen Super Mario Bros. 3, and that's just because it's not that great of a game.
Oh my god! What? That's ridiculous. That's
Now, I will
blasphemy.
say that Mario World doesn't have the frog suit, and that
Yeah.
is a negative for it.
True.
3 has the best power-ups, I think. Still,
Well, out of all the Mario games,
it has the frog suit. That's like way up. But it has the boot. It has
The boot's awesome.
the Tanuki, the actual Tanuki suit. That was the first time we saw it. The
Yeah.
Hammer Bro suit.
Johnny 3D World has a cat suit.
That's good. That's a good point. That's a really
Yeah,
good
see?
power-up.
See?
Anyway,
But-
this is not okay. Here's another thing that I saw on X, which I think both of you saw. This is not a Nintendo podcast, even though it's hosted by 2 Nintendo fanboys who primarily play Nintendo games, and all of the guests, most of the guests, primarily like Nintendo. This is not a Nintendo podcast, so don't get mad at us for not talking about Nintendo right away, okay?
They're gonna get mad that you talked about the Eagles.
I know.
I mean,
We don't get into the actual topic for like at least 10 minutes.
Well, I think it's nice to know like what the hosts are doing or who they are, because
Clearly
otherwise
not.
we just jump into the
Dance Monkey
thing
Dance.
Yeah, right. That's all that they want us to do is perform for them.
That's
But-
been a criticism of my podcast too, and I agree with you. The podcast that I listen to, I like to hear what the hosts have been up to, because usually, like, you can listen to anybody talk about video games, but you only listen to your favorite podcast because you enjoy the host. Like I don't know, you want to have a connection and know what they've been up to, know what they're interested in. I like when they show their personalities. So you guys keep doing you and talk about what you want to talk about.
Yeah, there are like Nintendo podcast. There are a dime a dozen. Like you could throw a
Exactly.
rock and hit a Nintendo news podcast. So we're trying to enrich your lives with
Let
seeing
your
what else is out there.
personalities shine. Exactly.
And Johnny, where can people find our personalities? Should we do some server maintenance?
Yeah. So we'll do some server maintenance real quick. We have big news that's going to happen in a day, but I don't want to announce it until it actually happens. But it will happen tomorrow. Well, when
Right.
this goes live. But make sure you leave 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Also follow on Spotify. You can do that. You can subscribe on Apple. Also subscribe on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter, X, Instagram. Oh my God, there's so much stuff.
Just all this stuff. It's Calm Error Podcast. You'll be able to find it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all the regular housekeeping stuff. Rebecca, we brought you on. We thought that you would be the best for if we need the Game Awards, because a lot of people probably don't know this, but in your Twitter bio, it says Jeff Keighley will be attending my funeral. Do you care to explain what that bio is about?
Oh man, was it? I think it was 2 years ago now. I can't even remember. I think it was not this past Game Awards, but the year before that. I was watching the Game Awards and I was so angry, and I was like live tweeting the whole thing. And I tweeted something like, when I die, I want Jeff Keighley to be the one to bury me so that he can let me down one more time. And I didn't even tag him or anything. Like, it was just like a normal tweet, like, you know, how I just put crap out there. And, I finished watching the Game Awards and I went to bed and I woke up and like the tweet had blown up. It was because Jeff Keighley had replied to it and said, okay, I'll be there. So now it's like become like an on-running joke that like, he'll be going to my funeral. So when I die, he'll be there. He'll be the one to let me down one last time.
I mean, I think it was a good clap back either way. Like if he
was.
was upset or if he was just like, I don't care. But the
It's so
response to
random.
it was
He's
pretty good.
he probably gets stuff like, he sees stuff like that all the time, and he just decides to randomly
He's like, this
reply.
is the one that I'm
Yeah.
going to pick on.
Also, I feel jealous
It's all good fun.
because so Rebecca, he called you out, but Cheesy was also on the Game Awards a few years ago.
Yeah, kind of.
But now, like, what do I have to do?
I don't know. Oh,
Well, I've been
I guess
using the TikTok filters. Maybe he'll notice me.
there you go.
Notice me, senpai, please.
Yeah. Because mine's not like it's more bragging rights, but it was the 2019 TikTok celebrate gaming, whatever. And then
Ooh.
I was like, I'll make a video. I'm on TikTok. I followed the rules of all the sounds that you could use. And I was like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. And then that was the one that won. But like on the awards night, it's pretty funny if you go back and look at it because he couldn't care less. He's just like, okay, here's this TikTok gaming contest, and Cheesy64 is the winner of the night or whatever. It was like
Just glossed
back,
over it.
back to games, and I
But
completely
he knows
understand.
who you are now. That's your like 3 seconds of fame.
Right. So, do we need the Game Awards? Just as a whole. Like, we can get into the whole topics at hand, but are the Game
Yeah,
Awards necessary?
That's a big question. I think in the grand scheme of things, nothing's necessary. I think
Mhm.
it definitely has its benefits. I think it also has its negatives. I don't know. I think that's up to each person to decide, but I don't know. We'll talk about
Well,
it.
yeah. I mean, do you want to get into what you like about the Game Awards?
I think it definitely has more benefits now that E3 is gone because to me, I feel like one of the biggest draws of the Game Awards is that it is a like pinpoint, at one place in one moment in time that everybody can come together, and it's not just one gaming company, it's kind of a mix of everything, and it is supposed to be a celebration, of the industry as a whole, and recognizing things and looking forward to what's coming ahead. And I think that since E3 has kind of gone by the wayside, Keeley among others have been trying to fill in that gap, in the summer,
Mhm.
but nothing really, it's still, it feels like it's all over the place at that time of the year. And so this is, this one place in time where everyone can just like come together and celebrate and complain and moan and whine and laugh and cry and do everything together as a community. And I think it's nice to have that.
Yeah. I mean, even if it is complaining or celebrating, like you're saying, or it is nice to have that community. You said supposed to. What are you referring there?
I definitely think that the show itself, even though it's not new, the Game Awards has been going on for, some years now, could benefit from some improvements. I know that criticism in the past, it's so long. It is such a long
Mhm.
show. It really doesn't need to be so long.
You see, it's 2.5 to
Um,
3 hours long.
I think so.
I think
It
they
always feels
confirmed.
like longer.
Yeah. I think they confirmed it's going to be 2.5 to 3 hours long.
And so
Wow.
much of that is filled with not even like game reveals, but just commercials,
Mhm.
for stuff that, people, it's not new, it's just advertisements in our face.
Mhm.
It does
Nintendo
feel
Switch
like
has
it's
games.
marketing at us. Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't do as much of the celebrating the games that I feel like an award show should be doing.
I mean, is that most award shows? Is that it's
It
not really
definitely is. It's not limited to just the Game Awards. It's the reason why I can't watch the Grammys or, anything like that. It's so much advertising in your face and not enough of like the actual highlighting, the games,
Mhm.
what we want to see, what we're there for.
Yeah, sadly, it costs money to put like this show on, so I guess he has to pay for it somehow.
I mean,
And
Yeah, I know
Gonzo is
it's a
going to be
huge
there.
task. It's a huge task.
Gonzo's going to be there.
Is
Gonzo
that
Gonzo's a presenter. I
Oh,
mean, he's not cheap. So,
I'm sure. I'm sure he's not. Yeah.
but
No,
no, I mean, go ahead.
No, I think there's a lot of things, about the Game Awards that I do look forward to each year. Like, I always look forward to, the orchestrated concert that they have, that really highlights the soundtracks of the games. And, I feel like everybody does expect, one or two really big world premieres, that they get excited for. So there are things that I really do enjoy about it. I think the event could use some work, though.
Yeah. Yeah, we had in our community, we had somebody that said Bozo in Discord said, I really wish that there was a category for best new game mechanic or something of the sort to reward innovation in game design. There's a lot of categories for presentation outside the gameplay, acting, narrative, music, etc., but hardly any that pertain to the core differentiating aspects of the medium. And I kind
I
of
think
agree with
that's
that.
a really good point. The categories I think could use some work. They feel like obviously there should be, best whatever of the genre.
Mhm.
But I think there's some categories that either just don't make sense or they put two things together that like really like don't they put fighting and racing games together or something like
Yeah,
Yeah.
that? And it's
or
like,
not sports and
dude, how do
racing.
you pitch, Street Fighter against Forza. Like it doesn't make sense to me. They're
I
too,
always feel that
you
way with
can't
like
judge them.
the Golden Globes. They do that with comedy and musical. And I was just like,
Yeah.
"What
Yeah.
that's two
They're two
completely different
totally yeah,
things."
you can have a musical that's not funny at all.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I know there can only be so many categories, there can only be so many awards, but I wouldn't mind to see something along the lines of something that outlines that particular um you know theme of it, or and I know that there was a lot of criticism of the indie category this year and how
Mhm.
what was it, Dave the Diver is not considered to be an indie game but fits under that category in the Game Awards somehow, and I think that instead of doubling down and saying, well, an indie game can mean lots of different things to lots of different people, maybe that's an opportunity to break up that category, and say, okay, well, instead of an indie of the year, let's say, small budget of the year under so much money, a double A game of the, just break it up into creative ways. I think that needs some work.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that last week and
I'm sure,
how
yeah.
yeah, I mean cuz it doesn't make any sense, but the fact that Keeley said that indie means many different things to many people, and that's what the jurors decided on was an indie game. It's like, well, that doesn't have me feeling good about the rest of the categories because, what after that, like, do they know what it is that they're voting for? And even the
Right.
developer of Dave the Diver was like, this isn't an indie game.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to proceed to keep going with it but not define it further, I still don't know what an indie game means to, I guess, whoever made the decision that Dave the Diver is an indie game. So I think it
It's
definitely needs some
pixelated.
work
I
in that
think that's.
regard.
I think
Pixel so best pixel game, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think you can find a way to make that work if that's really what you want that category to be. Um,
I mean,
but
when you
then
think
maybe
about
there
it,
are other indies that don't count as that.
when you look at Dave the Diver, if you didn't like, I didn't know it wasn't an indie until this whole story came out. I didn't know that it was backed by some major publisher
Mhm.
just by looking at it. And then I don't know if that's on me, but I would think like, how many judges does he have? 200 or something, or advisors?
Pretty
Hmm.
widespread, yeah.
So you would think that they would have been like, hey, no, that's actually not an
That
indie game.
somebody would have. Well, still, it's his show, and I think that even if other people were voting for that, maybe he, as the show, the showrunner, could say, "Look, like this doesn't qualify for this category. What if all 200 of them voted for, a game that's clearly not an indie? What if they all voted for Fortnite for it? Does that because they all voted for it? Does that mean that it should be? No, it doesn't work that way. Um, but I think you bring up a good point that I think a lot of people genuinely did not know at first that Dave the Diver wasn't an indie game just because they might not be familiar with the title. I think the Game Awards is also a really good, educating platform because you're learning more about games. You found out about how Dave the Diver wasn't an indie. Maybe, other people are learning other things about games through this. One of the things that I really like about it is the I forget what the category is called, the Games for Impact, I think it is.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love that category because I always find myself resonating with the games that are nominated for that category, but they always find games that I haven't heard of somehow. So I usually use that category as like a list to, here's what I'm going to play next year, because they do a good job of finding interesting games that I have never heard of that really resonate with me. And for some reason, they really only do it with that category. Every other category, it's like, okay, I've heard of all of these games before. They don't really highlight some of the lesser known games that might be as good, just maybe weren't as popular. So I think it is, a big popularity contest in a lot of ways.
Even like the
better or
indie
for worse.
category, that like of the indie games, like
Yeah.
they are the popular indie games. It's not something out of left field. And every other category is pretty much the same, 5 or 6 games. There's not much, and I talked about the games for impact because I think that's an important category for various reasons. That one and accessibility. I just hope that they don't gloss over them this year.
I mean, they kind of already have. Is the problem is like when they announced the nominees for accessibility, they didn't say like how these games are accessible to gamers. Like, what is
I'm
it that?
so glad that you brought that up, because that has been a big criticism that I've had about that category every single year. Because I love that category. I love that they want to highlight that in games, because I do think it's so important. But I haven't played every single game in that category, and I want to know, what did this game do that made it qualify for this? What put this on this list? Did they, do something that others aren't doing? Did they really go out of their way to solve a problem that other games aren't doing? I definitely agree with you, Cheesy, that that just give me a sentence or two as they announce each of the games, that this game is nominated because XYZ. Would just go such a long way, I think. I know they don't have, we're making the game longer, the show longer by doing that, but I think that's so important.
Yeah, I don't know how you solve that problem, because you brought up a good point. Like, there's so many things that we want added to the show, but then that's just going to make it even longer. And let's be honest, most people aren't going to care about
even if they put it on their website, like when you're voting, because I think if you go on there right now, to vote, how many people are just voting for their favorite game in that category and not which game is most accessible, has the best accessibility. If they, took a paragraph and explained it, I think people can make, a more informed decision on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Hopefully they do that for the drawers. I hope the drawers get that at least. At least then they're not picking their favorite game.
Yeah. What are you doing, John?
The games in this category, it's like Diablo 4, Forza, Hi-Fi Rush, Spider-Man 2, Mortal Kombat 1, Street Fighter 6. Like, they're all big games.
I would love to know, like, what Forza is doing, for example.
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing that the competition's not?
I don't know. I mean, it's just, I saw a tweet that somebody asked, well, when does the pre-show start? And Keeley said, well, I wouldn't really call it a pre-show, but it starts at this time. And it's like, that's what it is, though. Because, I mean, you gloss over, you're just like, these are the nominees, and the winner is here. And
they even have like the little timer up at the top that says pre-show. The real show starts in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's all the awards that nobody cares about, like, best esports player, best esports coach, best, all those things that.
But then they get into some categories I think people do care about, like best multiplayer, best family game.
You only care about best multiplayer because Splatoon won last year. That's the only reason.
I mean, a win is a win, you take those. What were you saying, Rebecca?
I have a bone to pick with the best family game, as well. Just
Please.
Because that feels
the
like
Nintendo
it's the
category.
Nintendo award. Yeah, the Nintendo award. Where like it might not even necessarily be a great family game. Like I don't think single player games should really count for best family game. If it's family, I want to be playing it with my family.
Yeah.
Now, are they trying to say best family friendly game? Because that's a totally different thing in my opinion.
I agree.
So I don't know.
Johnny,
I
I
know.
I know.
Pikmin in there.
I was gonna say Pikmin is up for that right now, right? And
Yeah.
I did play some multiplayer Pikmin 4 this year. Love Pikmin 4, great game. Is it best family game? Absolutely not, because you know that your little brother or sister is gonna be the one with the pebble pitcher, because you can't play as two characters when you're playing through the game, and they have to be the pebble pitcher and just shoot little pebbles at the enemy and like barely do any damage, and somebody has to get stuck with that. That's not a good family game.
No. I
They
also
could have
don't
done
really.
so much more. There's so many captains in that, or there's so many characters in that game.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Like, how
Yeah.
do you
I hear
not
you.
do that? I mean, he had it in 3. Like, why?
Mhm.
That's a whole
it's also-
other episode.
True, because it's not even a great introduction into gaming. Like, even if you're giving it to your little sibling or whatever, like, that's not fun for them to just be hitting a button over and over. I guess
Not fun.
that's
It's an
kind of-
afterthought, and that
Yeah,
shouldn't be
yeah.
best family game.
Yeah.
Is Mario Wonder fun to play with your family? Like, that co-op is just kind of chaos.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in my
Better than
opinion,
Pikmin.
yes, I think it's better than Pikmin. But the
Were you sleeping on the
Couch
couch that
co-op.
night
what?
when you played Super Mario Bros with your wife? Were you sleeping on the couch after that night?
No, I mean, like, it was more frustrating, I think, for the both of us, just because it doesn't really explain. The crown mechanic is annoying because you don't know who has the crown. You don't know if it's like, oh, this person got more coins, or they're in the lead, or they touched the flagpole on the last level. So whoever has the crown, that's who the camera is on. And it makes it really difficult for some levels. And even if it wasn't just me and my wife that were playing, if it was like little kids and you're trying to get them to follow along, or they're the ones that have the crown, and you're trying to explain, okay, you need to move forward so we can keep seeing the rest of the level. That's, I don't know. I just don't think it's really that great of a family game. It's better than
Fair.
Pikmin 4, but it's kind of disappointing, I think. It's a good, like, multiplayer game, you know, like online. Like, it was fun to see how other people completed levels and the way that they play.
Or didn't
Mario
complete
games.
levels because somebody was stuck playing. What was that Goomba level that somebody couldn't figure out how to get past the first pipe? Cheesy.
Yeah, no, that
No.
was just hard. I don't know. I don't know. I completely, once I was done with Mario Wonder, we returned to it like a couple weeks ago on the Nintendo Powercast, and just were playing that Goomba level on the special world, and I completely forgot like how Mario is supposed to move and like the best like jump combos you can do. And I don't know. I guess I played it and then kind of left it, because that's Wonder's great, but it didn't have long staying power.
The one thing that I thought about after we talked last week was there's not really any transparency on who wins these awards. Like, how do they get determined?
Right, because we talked about how there's like best game direction, but they don't talk about who is actually nominated. They just say the game that is nominated, but we don't actually get to learn about those people.
Well, I meant
Right.
more people voting, like how the winners get chosen, not like who.
Oh, I guess that part too. I don't know, because we do have a say in it. The people have a say in it, but then the jurors.
There is a jury. I think on the website it tells you all of the websites. There's like representatives from websites across the world. If you go on the website,
Okay, I see. There's a
like,
jury
whole list.
section.
Yeah. Now I don't know about like the breakdown for that. You know, it doesn't say like specifically the names. Like Digital Trends has this, you know, somebody from them has a say. Easy Allies, somebody from them has a say. Game Informer, Giant Bomb.
All right,
So a
the
lot of
goal
the
is to
press-
get on this
press
list.
Yeah.
Is the IGN's on here?
Mm-hmm.
We had a comment from No Less Guy that said, if you could add any category to this year's Game Awards, what would you add? And what 5 games should be nominated for that category? Best DLC/expansion would be a solid nod instead of lumping some of those into ongoing cough cough cyberpunk.
Yeah, I've always thought that that should be, a distinction because ongoing, I feel like, it's so hard to know ongoing versus, a game that gets DLC. Like, I see Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as an ongoing game. Yes, it's like a
Yeah.
DLC pack, but this is a game that's been ongoing for years now. So that distinction, it feels like some muddied waters there. So yeah, I don't know about like any brand new category, but there are some ones like that I would like to break up. I'm glad that they do break up best indie and best debut indie, just
Mhm.
because I feel like that is kind of the more pure indie category, the debut indie game category. There was another one that I thought. Let me take a look at the list here. Um,
We've had a problem with community. What is that one? Best community support?
Yeah, community support.
oh,
Because
yes, and
basically what they're saying is like, oh, sorry, your game wasn't completed when we released it, but we're gonna work on it, and then they get rewarded for it afterwards. So we definitely think Starfield is gonna be there next year.
probably. Or the fact that Destiny 2 is nominated for that and their entire community support staff was laid off right before
Oh,
it was announced to
Yeah.
be, all of the people that helped make, it possible for this game to be in the category are now no longer working,
Yeah.
for the company. A little ironic there. But yeah, that's definitely, I guess, celebrating something that necessarily shouldn't be celebrated. Um, oh, that's a good question for like a brand new
I want to
category. I would
see,
have to really
like, we
think about
have,
that.
isn't there there's a publisher one, isn't there? Well, I thought there used to be like
What, like best publisher?
best publisher, maybe not.
I
I
feel
don't
like that
see
used to
it.
be a category.
But like, there's not many that talk about the actual developer. Like, I guess if your game gets nominated, then your development company gets nominated as well. But I don't know,
Hmm.
something related to like best publisher, or I'm pretty sure that used to be a thing.
I'm sure it was, or maybe like another, award show probably does something similar to that.
Mhm.
Just another category that Nintendo can win. All right, best game with Link in it.
I guess I'm not so good at thinking up of brand new ones because I just want to keep splitting up some of these categories. Like best RPG, like I do wish that turn-based was its own thing, just
Yeah.
because I know some really good ones got snubbed this year. Like Octopath Traveler 2 didn't get a nomination because you have stuff like Baldur's Gate and Starfield in here that like, yeah, they're RPGs, but I don't know. I want my Sea of Stars and my Octopath to shine a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I agree. And you brought up that, it really hasn't been a great year for gaming in the sense of the people that are working in games. Do you think Keeley will mention that at all? I mean, like, this is supposed to
Not
be
a
a
chance.
celebration of gaming, and it's a huge disservice to
He will
those
not
that
mention anything that has anything to do with any controversy at all, which is why the Jeff Keighley will let me down to my grave one last time tweet was born, because he will not touch anything that is controversial with a 10-foot pole.
Especially something that will hit his sponsors. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if he goes after Activision, like, he's not going to get money from Activision anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Can't
unfortunate
criticize
because
Bungie, can't criticize. Yep, can't do any of that.
yeah, it's unfortunate because it should be talked about. Like, there's how many tens of thousands of people were laid off this year, I think,
Hmm.
in
This
the
was
in
a
the
really,
gaming
which is
industry.
it's crazy because of how fiscally successful this year was in games
Yeah.
to lay off the people who made that possible. It's just so unfortunate.
Yeah. And you've been very vocal lately about just women in the gaming space and how you don't feel they're being respected at all. They're not showing up to awards or being nominated for some awards. How do we I know it's kind of a broad question, but how do you fix that? Like what is it that they need to do, or what? I don't know.
Yeah. I think definitely that has been a big criticism of a lot of these award shows. I think it was this past Summer Games Fest. There was the big criticism that there weren't any, women on stage at all, whether it be presenters or developers or whatnot. And I do think that the people who are the showrunners for these types of events do have that responsibility, to make sure that a diverse, range of voices is being heard, whether that be women, people of color, just because of how I think this industry really naturally favors white men, and that's okay, but I would love to hear more of those voices that are leading, raise up other voices, because I do think that this would be a really boring industry if we didn't have women voices and people of color voices, with making games and promoting different aspects of games. Um, so I do hope that people like Keely, keep that in mind and want to highlight, some of this awesome work that's out there.
Yeah. I mean, it was really atrocious, embarrassing, just disgusting. Some of the comments that you were receiving, just talking about this, just the topic, right, of just
Yeah.
women gaming, and it's I
A lot of the comments that I got were because I said exactly that. Like, I do think that the people who do have these positions of power tend to be white men, and I don't, people took that as I hate white men, which is not what I said. I said that they have powerful voices, and it would be nice for them to use those voices, to lift up those who maybe aren't traditionally listened to as much. Um, and some people don't like hearing that, and that's okay. But it was in response to that one publication that listed the top most influential. I forget exactly what it was. Most influential voices in gaming in the past 3 decades or decade or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And not a single woman was on the list. And I think that surprised a lot of people, because there are many women that definitely could have appeared on that list without having to dig too deep or trying to find a way to squeeze a name in. I think there are lots of natural options for that, and so the fact that that list was published without that it was just surprising. And it makes me wonder who are the people who are making these decisions. And I do think that they have a responsibility to make sure that all the voices are being heard.
yeah. Yeah,
And and we, me and Cheesy are white men, so we haven't really had to face that type of adversity, and I don't think people really think about it. Like, they don't want to see their privilege, but and they get angry when somebody shows them their privilege. But I think we need to be more welcoming and diverse in the gaming community, because it's huge. Like, there's so many gamers out there that it's all not just white men.
I think a lot of people would be surprised, to know that some of their favorite games were made by women or people of
Mhm.
color. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people don't think about it. And, I think in a perfect world, we don't have to think about it. But, it's not a perfect world. And, I think, people like you guys do a really great job of lifting up people. And I wish everybody did that. And I wish that people who were the most powerful voices did that a little bit more. But all we can do is, do our own part and do one step at a time. And, I appreciate your guys' efforts and perspectives in doing that.
The one thing that that I find interesting, and it just came out, a GTA 6 has a female person of color protagonist. And that's awesome.
A lot of people are mad. A lot of people are mad about it.
I mean, I was gonna say, really, like that's something that we're discussing, but of course it is. Like, I don't know, that kind of stuff is just so silly. Why does it matter?
But it's a huge deal, though, right?
Yeah.
To have an IP that big, show that there should be diversity is a big deal, and I think hopefully that's going to reach an audience.
This is going to be the biggest game of the decade, and I think it is going to tell a story that doesn't get how many. And I just briefly watched the trailer before we started recording. Is it a Latina character?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many female Latina game characters can you name right now? Like,
yeah.
Probably not any. Maybe one or two listeners. Anyone? And it is a voice that doesn't get to be heard too often. And I think that's wonderful. I want to play more games like that. I want to play games where, maybe I identify with one aspect of the character because she's a woman. But, I want to learn more, about that type of character's background and that type of character's experiences. And, there's a number of ways that you can do that beyond gender and race, of course. But how many people are going to be identifying with those aspects of this character? And, I do think that's really awesome.
Let me ask you a question, because as Johnny said, we're white men. So sometimes when talking about topics like this, you don't want to speak out of turn or speak on the behalf of the other party, right? So you want to bring attention to it, but you also don't want to make it worse or say anything that is, I don't know, not true. But I have had a thought recently, or for a while now, I guess, and I don't know if this helps, if it should just be its own thing. I think that women that are gamers that use gamer girl as their tag or whatever, like they're a gamer girl, shouldn't be a thing. It should just be gamer. I don't think that it is actually helping women's case at all, because it's you're separating yourself, and that's cool. If you want to have your own thing that says, hey, this is for us, that's fine. But also we're not gamer guys.
I think that's a good point. And I think a lot of people, might do that because they do find it as, this is what makes me a little bit different. This is, a community that maybe I want to find more people who are like this. It could be a way, for somebody to signal, hey, I'm looking for other girls that are, want to play the same types of games as me. The same way that that people would about anything else about their culture, for example. Maybe they want to just highlight that aspect of them, to celebrate it, because in this case, it is a minority type of position, depending on what games that they're playing. So I think they might want to do it because they're proud of it, or want to embrace that aspect of who they are.
Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't think about it as just that's a community that you can find easily.
Yeah. And I know some people try to avoid it. They'll try to, not use their real name, when they're playing games. They won't, they'll use something very gender neutral. They won't use voiceover games because, they don't want to become, the target of any kind of harassment or let people know, that they're a woman. But I think there are others that do want to highlight and celebrate that.
I mean, you said earlier, we just got to take it one step at a time, and to Keely's credit, he's got stuff to work on, but the Game Awards at one time were really sexist, and it didn't help in the slightest. Made fun of gamers, so it's, I think, headed in a better direction than it was. But yeah, there's still things that have to be improved. How do you feel about it this year? Are you excited to watch them? Is there any hype for you? Is it just another award show? Are you gonna watch it?
I'll watch it. I'll have it on. You know, I it's definitely the kind of thing where I'll be doing other things while I watch it, you know, and trying to find as many opportunities to meme on it as possible. Let's see, you know, how many funny tweets and complaining I can do this year. You know, but it is better in a lot of ways. I do think that, you know, we have come a long way. Um, you know, and I do think, going back to your other point, that, you know, you guys are doing a great job of, you know, just listening and taking in feedback, and, you know, just as a whole, I think as long as we're learning, you know, that's progress. If you're willing to, you know, listen and open up and learn, that's the best possible thing that anybody can do. You know, because nobody's going to know everything. You know, I think
Yeah.
that you know, the question that you asked is very okay, and I wish that people would ask more questions instead of, you know, just to make assumptions or form an opinion without getting thoughts from others and spewing it out into the internet world.
When I was growing up, I grew up in a very small town in Pennsylvania, and we were not very, I don't know what the correct word would be, but weren't very knowledgeable, and we weren't very diverse. There was not a lot of diversity in our town, so I had all these ideals, and my family like put on me. But ever since like going to college and the relationship I've had, like it's helped me see a lot of like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't look at things this way, or like why would I even think that that was okay in the first place? So
Yeah, the best thing you can do is talk to people and learn. Like, I feel like a lot of people are just afraid of what they don't know. And, you know, you, like you said, like with the diversity aspect of it, you can't help where you grow up, and you maybe just didn't know a lot of people from different backgrounds and, you know, stuff that you didn't grow up with. And, you know, you might have opinions on that until you go out and meet people and talk to people. And then it's, you know, not so unfamiliar then. So
Yeah.
and you know, I don't know how that ties back to the Game Awards, but it's just a good lesson overall.
well, Cheesy asked you if you're gonna watch it. Are we getting Nintendo stuff? Are we getting anything Nintendo?
Nintendo stuff, like
Revealed.
announcements for new
announcements.
games.
Yeah.
I think so. They usually have something. What was it? The Mario movie last year. Some years before that, we had the Bayonetta reveal.
The Mario movie was last year?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, it was last year with Teresa, and then I guess
The
we
first
discovered
trailer.
the Engage DLC also was at the Game Awards.
Okay. Before the game even came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll get something. I don't know that we'll get anything like huge or groundbreaking, because I do think, you know, if they have plans to reveal new hardware next year, I think they're going to want like their biggest announcements saved for whatever that presentation is going to be. You know, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, you know, we get a trailer for that new Princess Peach game, or if you know, we get a reveal for Metroid Prime 2 and 3. You know, something like that, you know, would be pretty cool. So I think we'll get something, nothing huge, but I think this will be like one of the quieter years for them.
Do you think so? There's that rumor out there of a Zelda game by the end of the year. Do you think it's a shadow drop, a Wind Waker? I saw that. Oh, okay. I do have to call something out too.
Hold on. I think Rebecca knows something.
I don't know anything.
You don't?
But no, I have to call something out. I saw a picture, and it was not appropriate. It was a very piratey looking picture.
Oh. I don't know what you're talking about.
Somebody was playing Wind Waker on a Steam Deck. I won't name
Who was
names.
that? Oh my gosh. Lock them up.
I mean, you probably bought it at least twice, right? So I mean, it's
Oh,
like
so many times.
it's But do you think maybe we see Wind Waker or Twilight Princess Shadow Drop?
I would love that. I knew that's been a rumor for a very long time. I do think that if you had asked me at this time last year if that was even possible, I would have said, nah, they would never do that. But they did that for Metroid Prime, so maybe for their, remasters, they're more willing to do shadow drops for that. Do I think they would do it for a Zelda game? Maybe not. I think that they still have that saved for a rainy day. Maybe that's next year. I don't know. I think in a perfect world, I would love to play Wind Waker on my Switch. I think that that's long overdue. Twilight Princess too. That would be very cool.
Yeah,
and
on
I
the
hope it
side,
does
on the
happen.
side.
I
you
hope
know,
I'm
just-
wrong. On the side. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think it'll happen, but it would be a good one.
I think if we get anything, it will be something like that, like a remaster, like maybe Metroid Prime 2 and 3, Shadow Drop, and then they could release it digitally that night and then wait a month or two
Yeah.
to release physically.
Yep.
I mean, I still think Switch 2 is getting revealed. I don't know. I'm on that hype train.
That would be big. That would be really big.
What a troll. What it is going to be though is we had the Mario trailer last year, okay? We're getting the Zelda trailer. We don't know the
Zelda
cast.
trailer.
Chris Pratt is going to be Ganondorf.
Oh, no.
Ganondorf.
You'll know for
Yeah.
sure
Whoa.
if Nintendo has something big, if they, tweet on social media, tune into the Game Awards. Like, that's how you know that they'll have somthing interesting. If
They
they're
have
silent on it,
nominations,
like-
though. Like, that's the thing. They have nominations.
Yeah, true. Do they really care, though?
They released like a
Maybe for Game of
nomination
the Year.
trailer.
Game of the Year, they care. Oh, did they?
I think
I
so.
didn't see that.
Like maybe when the nominations came out, they released a trailer for Tears of the Kingdom and Wonder.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do they
we'll
care though?
see.
That's a good question. Do most developers care about the Game Awards? Because I don't know. Whenever I see people at the Game Awards, it looks like they're falling asleep or they would rather be somewhere else. Like maybe it is nice to be acknowledged, but
It's a nice free marketing for them, for sure. I don't think they care at all if they win, besides the fact that, oh yay, it's a little bit more free marketing.
yeah. Yeah, I think the Game Awards are fun. I think that they are needed. I mean, it's kind of like what Johnny and I said last week. Nothing is needed. Games aren't needed. But since that is the thing that we love, it is nice to see those that are celebrated. It is nice to bring attention to some of those games. You talked about games for impact. I saw a TikTok that was Chance of Sonar is the Dark Souls of Duolingo, and that is quite the hook.
What?
Yeah.
Because in the game,
Exactly.
you don't know the language that they're speaking, so you have to figure it out. You have to figure out all these different clues and look at their writing and figure out what letter that could be. So, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. And the town itself, like in the game, they're dealing with something kind of important, and they're really upset about it, but you don't know what they're upset about, so you kind of have to decipher it through their language. You're learning a new language as you're playing it.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's cool that you just have even TikTokers that are talking about games like that are bringing light to games that you might not know about, but because it's at the Game Awards, that gave the opportunity for that content creator to talk about it. So there is a lot of good. I don't really know. Jeff Keighley has big shoes to fill being in charge of an award show that is supposed to be the biggest night in gaming. Obviously, there can always be something to be improved on. But to make it a perfect or as good as can be show, I don't envy him. I'll say that. Like, I think I would not want to be in his shoes.
It is a big task for sure. A lot
Now,
of people tune into it.
Every year it keeps growing
Mm-hmm.
because it's one of the only award shows that's streamed.
Mm-hmm.
now before now this is it's the last announcement of the night.
What's that?
What is your game of the year, Rebecca?
It has to go to Tears of the Kingdom. You know how much I love Zelda. This was my most anticipated game for a really long time, and probably the game that I poured the most hours into this year. Do I think it'll win Game of the Year at the Game Awards? Absolutely not. But it is my personal game of the
I
year.
don't know. Everybody I talked to today says Tears of the Kingdom. That's the three people here. That was the joke.
You cut out, so I couldn't really hear what you
Oh,
said.
I cut out. My bad. I said everybody that I talked to today has said Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
And the joke, it's you two. So like,
Yeah. Did you, since we have you on, did you like Tears of the Kingdom more than Breath of the Wild?
Yes, it actually has made Breath of the Wild feel irrelevant for me. I think that when I want to go back and play Zelda on the Switch, I think I will pick up Tears of the Kingdom every single time because I think that it just does everything that I wanted Breath of the Wild to do, and I don't feel like there's too much reason to go back to Breath of the Wild after playing Tears of the Kingdom. So it's definitely my favorite Zelda experience on the Switch.
Wow. High praise.
I mean, I can see that. I agree. I mean, Breath of the Wild's fantastic. It changed the series as a whole, but I don't see myself wanting to go back to Breath of the Wild when there's Tears of the Kingdom there, because there's just so much more to do in Tears of the Kingdom.
I agree.
Combining weapons is, I mean, like going back and trying to do that in Breath of the Wild, you can't. But it's weird to think that that is something that was to come, I guess.
Right. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Johnny?
Well, that's the
What were you
correct
saying?
answer. So,
What do you guys think will win Game of the Year at the Game Awards?
Tears of the Kingdom. I'm going in confident.
I like it.
I don't know. I really think that Baldur's Gate is probably going to take it, and I think that Tears of the Kingdom is a great game. A lot of people love it. It doesn't feel like it had the same kind of staying power that Breath of the Wild did. Now, 2017 was a different time, and it was just something brand new for the series, and we got a lot of what was in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which is great. That's what we wanted, but the conversation around it didn't really stay as long as I think Baldur's Gate did. Like, people are still talking about that game. But I don't know. Maybe the Game Awards will throw us for a loop, and it will be Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know. I'm going to say Baldur's Gate.
I think Baldur's Gate is the one that deserves it the most. The Game Awards usually has a way of finding a way to award the game that I don't think should win. So maybe it won't, but I think that's the one that deserves it the most.
Yeah, and I'm okay with Baldur's Gate winning. That one is probably the one that I'm okay with. Anything else besides Tears of the Kingdom doesn't make any sense.
I thought you were just going to talk about Spider-Man. We were going to go on another hour of you talking about Spider-Man.
Tell you, those side missions, man, they ruin it. They ruin it. Rebecca, have you played any of the? Have you played the other games in the Game of the Year category?
Me?
Yeah.
I have not played the remake to Resident Evil 4, but I've played the original. I know that doesn't really count, but
It's pretty much the same.
I've watched a lot of Wonder. You know, I've watched a lot of Baldur's Gate. I don't know too much about Spider-Man or Alan Wake, but I don't say as much buzz about those two anyway.
Yeah,
I think the biggest conversation is, does Wonder deserve to be there?
I'm surprised that it's there. From what I've heard people say, this is like one of the best Mario games of all time. I can think of some games that I would rather be there, but again, I haven't played it, so who am I to say?
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it's a fantastic game, and it's a Nintendo game, so yeah, it deserves to be there. but that's not. No, I mean there are some other games that I think, well, at least one other game that I think should have been nominated that wasn't. I don't know if it replaces Mario, but I think Sea of Stars should have been there.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that. I love Sea of Stars.
It's they always nominate like a smaller game. There's always a smaller game in Game of the Year, except for this year. And
I think Baldur's Gate counts as our indie game of our
is that an
indie
indie
nomination.
Okay,
I
I
mean,
know, isn't that crazy?
that's a cop out.
that is, but Dave the Diver isn't.
huh.
If we're going by like definition of what an independent game is, yeah.
Well, then I'm okay with it winning. I'm okay with that winning, just not Spider-Man.
Someday I'll have to ask you about why you have such a bone to pick with Spider-Man.
It's
He's jealous.
I beat
He
it.
wishes
No, I
that
beat
he
it.
could
So I
swing
actually
around and
I played it. I don't know. That series is overrated, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
You're gonna make a lot of people
Well,
mad with that one.
yeah.
The game
Rebecca, thank
series is
you.
overrated.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and I really do admire everything that you really said about just, if we are listening to others, then we're learning. That's really what we try to do with this show, is fix people's communication errors and just try to get them out of their circles, start conversations that's not arguing, but discussions. And that is how we'll grow. So thank you so much for all your words and insight, and really
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having me on the show. I love I love talking about games, so I really appreciate that you invited me.
Well, where can people find you?
You can find me at forestminish on Twitter. I stream on Twitch. I do some other cool stuff on the internet. I write, I podcast, but you can find all my stuff on those two places.
And
Johnny, where can people find you?
I'm Johnny Ebo everywhere: Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, the Nintendo Powercast, which we went in depth on the Game Awards last week. And also to the video watchers, Cheesy's wearing a green shirt, so please do something with that.
Well, you can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and the Nintendo Powercast, CheezyC64, CheeZyC64. Rebecca, thank you again for being on.
Yeah, thanks.